Good afternoon and welcome to today's webcast titled How's My Waterway? This webcast is sponsored by EPA's Watershed Academy and EPA's Office of Wetlands, Oceans, and Watersheds. I'm Tegan Rostock with EPA's Watershed Academy, and thank you all for joining. The slides are available for participants to download from the EPA Watershed Academy website at epa.gov/Watershed Academy. This webcast is being recorded and will be archived for later viewing, also on the Watershed Academy website. Participants are eligible to receive a certificate for their attendance at the end of the webcast. Directions for obtaining the certificate will be presented at the conclusion of the presentations. I would like to briefly summarize some of the features of today's webcast and touch on a few housekeeping items. We hope you will have a lot of questions. Please type your question in the questions panel on your GoToWebinar control panel and click the send icon. If you have any problems viewing the broadcast, just let us know in the same questions box and we will post an answer in that same box. Today's webcast will have a question and answer session after the demonstration. We will try to answer as many questions as possible. However, due to the high number of participants, we will not be able to respond to all questions. We encourage you to contact speakers after the webcast if you have any unanswered questions or would like to follow up about their presentation. We will provide the speaker's contact information on one of our final slides. Now that we have completed the discussion of housekeeping items, let's kick off today's webcast. We would like to begin with a few polls. If you are viewing the slides in full screen mode, you may not be able to respond to the polls. We suggest you exit full screen mode to answer the questions, or if you would like, you can just type in your response to the questions chat box. You can return to full screen mode when we begin the presentations. First, we would like to know where everyone is from. Enter what state or territory you are from in the questions chat box. Great, it looks like we have people from all over. Thanks, everyone. Now we would like to know what type of organization you're with. Please select a response in your screen so we can have a better idea of who is joining us today. Let's broadcast the results. Great, it looks like we have a lot of people from NGOs and government. Thanks all for your responses. Now let's kick off today's presentation. During this webinar, you will hear about the updated version of the How's My Waterway tool that was released in June. How's My Waterway provides a comprehensive overview of water quality data and information in the United States on 3 different scales: community, state, and national. First, I would like to introduce Dwayne Young. Dwayne is the chief of the Water Data Integration Branch in EPA's Office of Water. He has worked with EPA since 2005 and has worked on environmental data management systems in both the Office of Water and the Office of Solid Waste and Emergency Response. Dwayne has also served as a federal liaison to the Western States Water Council. Dwayne led the initial development of the Water Quality Exchange, WQX, for EPA, played a key role in the development of EPA's Clean Water Act, integrated reporting system, and oversaw the implementation of updates to the RCRA info system, and has extensive experience with assisting partners in sharing water quality data. Dwayne, take it away.
Great, thank you very much, Tegan. So as I wait to get my slides up here, I did want to maybe just give you a little bit of background because some of you may have already heard of How's My Waterway, or you may be familiar with How's My Waterway. How's My Waterway as a term or as an idea has been around since about 2012. And there was a version of How's My Waterway out there, which was very popular and was a great application that was really designed to try to bring water quality information to the general public in a succinct and clear way. So that's going to bring me to our next poll question, which we'd really like to get a sense of how many of you have actually interacted with the older How's My Waterway, so the How's My Waterway that had been around since 2012, prior to this recent release of How's My Waterway 2.0. So if we could bring that next poll up, that would be great. All right, excellent. We'll give folks a second to answer that, and then we'll take a look at the results. Okay, excellent. We got a pretty good mix. So some folks have had a chance to play around with it. I think for those of you who have seen How's My Waterway or used the prior version of How's My Waterway, you'll see some similar ideas, but there are quite a few changes that we've made as well to try to make it even clearer than how it used to be. For those of you who haven't seen the prior How's My Waterway, I'm hoping you'll see something that you like in the current one. So let's go ahead and get started. If we can bring my slides up. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to be very brief. My job is to be as brief as possible so that we can get to the demo as quickly as possible as well. So I'm just going to give you a very brief history about how we got here to How's My Waterway, some of the things we're trying to accomplish with How's My Waterway, and some of the efforts that went into making this a reality. Today, I'll be presenting also Kiki Schneider, who will be introducing shortly. She's going to be giving the bulk of the presentation today and walking through a demo of this. She is actually the system owner for this application. She's the one who did all of the design and the implementation of it. And I'm the guy who kind of gets to get credit for it a lot of times. So I thank Kiki for that. She's really great with that. So How's My Waterway is really a complete rethinking of how do we share water information with the general public. It comes from one of the challenges that we have noticed as people have asked us questions or interacted with our data is a lot of times we were forcing people to understand how EPA was organized in order to be able to find information. They had to know that the monitoring program sat within OWOW or our office to be able to discover where the water quality monitoring information was. They had to have a pretty good understanding of our architecture or our structure to be able to know where to find water quality assessment conclusions or drinking water information to know that that's in the drinking water office. And so one of the ideas that we had behind How's My Waterway was that, well, let's present this information to the public in a succinct and compiled way so that they don't have to know what EPA structure is. And instead, all they have to really know is, where do I live? What's the location where I'm at right now? And tell me everything that you know about that particular location. We also want to take advantage of some of the modern technologies that are out there, things like maps and being able to use maps to communicate information, while also pairing together not only those maps with not just providing maps, but also providing additional information, metrics, and other pieces of information about that particular watershed or area that you were interested in. So you got the full picture about that particular area. And then everything also is communicated in clear and succinct language that isn't wrapped up in either Clean Water Act language or other EPA specific language. Go ahead and give me my next slide. Okay. So How's My Waterway is really about trying to tell a story about water quality. We're pulling information from several different EPA systems, and it's pulling those data in real time, which means as the data get updated in those systems, they automatically show up in How's My Waterway. So we're trying to provide the most succinct and current information that we have available within a particular local watershed or area of interest. We are really trying to get usable information to the public. So we want to make sure we're getting that useful information to the public. We also want to provide information about progress that states, tribes, and EPA are making towards restoring and protecting water quality. So not only identifying where are the problems or where are the challenges that are being faced from a water quality perspective, but also identifying what's being done about it. Who's doing activities to restore these waters or to protect these waters, and what are those activities? So we want to be able to provide that information as well. And at the end of the day, what we really wanted to do is to give the public tools and information so that they can not only understand what's going on in water quality generally, but they can understand what's going on in water quality within their local area. And I'll tell you a quick story in regards to that. As we've been developing this, as a lot of us have been working from home, my 8-year-old came up and was looking at this application as we were looking at it one day, and I was showing him the area that we lived, and he said, well, show me where we live and show me what information is there. And I showed it to him. And he's like, hey, Dad, nobody's monitoring that stream that we walk along all the time. I said, you're right. What should we do about that? And that's the exact kind of conversation that we would love for How's My Waterway to try to start, is getting people really engaged in what's going on in their local watershed, seeing where things are being looked at and where things aren't being looked at, and trying to identify what can we all do to try to help restore water quality. Let's go ahead and take the next slide. Okay, so the last piece that I'll mention just briefly in How's My Waterway before I turn it back to Kiki is that all this information is based on a service. So I mentioned earlier that we're pulling data from several different systems. This is a totally different way of thinking about how we build applications within EPA, and why this is important is that it allows us to be able to have that real-time, most current information that's coming from those other systems. We're not taking a snapshot, we're not getting a copy of it, we're actually getting the actual current data from those systems so that it's as up-to-date as we can have. You will see as you engage in How's My Waterway, certainly there is data that might be from 2018 or 2016, but that is the most current information that we have. And so that's really a critical improvement over how we've been able to do things in the past. One of the other things that we wanted to try to do within How's My Waterway was to tell stories at the community level, at the state level, and also at the national level, so that somebody can interact at any of those individual levels to understand what's going on in water quality at each of those levels. And we pulled different information to try to help tell that story. And the other thing that we wanted to do is we didn't want to make the public have to know, well, where are these data? What system do they live in? We don't want them to have to know what WQX is. That's not something they need to know. They don't have to know what Attains is. They don't have to know what these different applications are. But rather, How's My Waterway handles all of that for them. It grabs the data from these various systems and brings that back to them in a way that makes sense. And then we also allow for this kind of in-depth interaction with the data and with a lot of interactive content so that people can spend as much time as they want in How's My Waterway. The other thing that you'll notice just in this graphic that I'm showing here, and this was a principal design consideration as we built this, is that we wanted it to be mobile friendly. We really wanted to support the idea that somebody is out in the field, somebody's out getting ready to recreate. We want them to be able to use this application to be able to discover what's going on where they're at that particular time. And so it is designed to be mobile friendly first. It's a very excellent web application as well. So running on your desktop, it works very, very well, but it also works really well on your mobile applications as well on your mobile phone. So that was a really critical thing that we wanted to do. So I'm going to go ahead and stop talking, and I'm going to turn it back to Tegan to go ahead and introduce Kiki.
Thank you, Dwayne. So now I would like to introduce Kiki Schneider. Kiki has worked for the EPA since 2010, first in the Office of Environmental Information and now in the Office of Water. Kiki has a background in user-centered design and environmental policy. She has spent most of her time at EPA developing websites and applications that are easily accessible and user-friendly. Prior to EPA, she spent time at the University of Maryland doing research on technology with children as design partners, where she learned a lot from the kids about design and looking at things through fresh eyes. She is very excited to present How's My Waterway to you today. Kiki, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Tegan and Dwayne. Let me share my screen. Okay, it looks like you can see the application. Okay, so I have How's My Waterway up on my screen right now. This is the home page. And you can start here by entering your address. You can enter a zip code, or you can enter a place. We've had people enter places like Area 51 and Mount Rushmore, and you can see what comes up. So you can also use your location if your browser allows that, and it will pinpoint where you are and land in that area. We have, as Dwayne mentioned, we have data at the community, state, and national levels. You can jump right in to those levels from the home page as well if you don't want to enter an address in the search bar. And we also have 4 buttons at the bottom under Explore Topics. And these topics are actually the 4 main topics the public was interested in when they contacted us at EPA. So we have a quick way of accessing those: swimming, eating fish, aquatic life, and drinking water. So for this demo, I'm going to put in a location I'm used to, which is Richmond, Virginia, and press go. And now it's loading all that data Dwayne was talking about through web services from 8 different databases at EPA and beyond, and several different service calls. So when you get to the first page, this is the overview page, and this gives you a snapshot of what's happening in your watershed. I entered Richmond, so as you can see, your watershed is outlined by this little dashed outline on the map. And if you're new to watersheds in general, and you might not know what one is, we find a lot of people don't. We also have a glossary, and you can click on certain words, and a definition will come up. So you can see watershed is a land area that drains into a stream or other water body. And in this glossary, we have about 100 different words throughout the app that you can look up and get definitions for. Another way to access the glossary is at the top of the application. You click on the button right there. Okay, so I'm going to show you some cool features of the map. We have a legend down here, explains what you're looking at. We have a way to change the layers. If you don't like this light gray canvas, you can change it to a street map. You can change it to imagery, terrain, etc. You can also make the map full screen. If you have a bigger screen and you just want to click around on the map and you don't want to read a bunch of stuff. So now that I have the map full screen, I'll show you some of the layers we have on this application. So I'm gonna click on imagery because that's kind of cool. So we have, as I showed you, the outline showed a lot of different, your watershed you landed on, but there's obviously, these are small watersheds called Huck 12s, and there's a ton of watersheds around where the application has landed. So if you don't like where you've landed when you enter your address, you can actually update to the nearest watershed. And I'm going to turn on the watershed layer, and in purple, I'm going to go back to light gray canvas. You can see it better. So these purple outlines are all the other small watersheds around your area, and say you didn't really want to land here, you can click outside and it will say, do you want to change your location to the next watershed, and then it will reload the data. We also have, now the waters that you see here in red and purple and green have been assessed by the state of Virginia, and there are also waters that exist that have not been assessed, but they have actually been mapped in our national hydrography data set. So maybe you're curious to see, oh, I don't see my lake there, so maybe it's been mapped, but maybe Virginia just didn't assess it. So you can see all the water bodies that have appeared in blue that don't have, within that watershed that don't have assessment data. Say you're interested in this lake up here, you could contact your state and say, hey, can you please evaluate that lake? I'm interested in it. We also have counties, if you want to see the counties around where you've landed as well. So I'm going to go back to regular screen. So we have the map on the left, and we have a list of all the water bodies in this watershed that Virginia has assessed. I'm going to turn off the watershed layer, back to here. And you can click on the map to get information about these water bodies. And red means that it has been impaired for a certain use that's been evaluated for. So this water body has been assessed for these different uses: aquatic life, fish and shellfish, recreation. And you can see that aquatic life, the water is impaired. So that means the whole water body is going to show up there as being impaired. Now, if all these uses were good, it would show up green. You can see there's some green ones here. If you don't like to click around the map, you can get all this information in a list as well. And in the map and in the list, we have the same information, but you can see it a little bigger on the screen here in the list. And if the water body has been impaired for something, you can see what categories it's been impaired for. And so these are bacteria and other microbes, mercury, PCBs, and pesticides for that water body. And if you don't know what that means, or you want to find out more about bacteria and other microbes or PCBs, you can do the definition here. And for most of these impairments, we have definition of what they are and what you can do to help restore your waterway. So each water body on this application, in addition to this information on the overview page, has a water body report page. So you can click on any of them in the list and you'll get to this water body report page for every water body, and this will give you the information that the state has submitted. I'm going to click here. I already have it up. So this is the information Virginia has submitted to us at EPA before we rolled it up into different categories. So for House My Waterway, we rolled stuff up into recreation or eating fish or aquatic life, but sometimes the state submits different uses like wildlife, so that would be a use that would be in our other category. So you can see exactly what they submitted on the water body report page. You can also do a deeper dive, say, oh, fish consumption, it's impaired for fish consumption, but what exactly is going on there? So we also rolled up the impairment categories, and so it might say PCBs on the main page, but here is what actually Virginia has submitted: mercury in fish tissue, and then some other more complicated words here that we've rolled up into common categories across all states. And you can see other parameters evaluated: arsenic. You can find out where the water is located, what kind of water is it, when it was last reported, 2018 data here. If it is on a 303D list, if it needs a TMDL. So we also have probable sources contributing to impairments. And if it does have a plan to restore water quality, we have listed here and linked to our plans page, which I'll go through when I get to that part of the application. So that's the water body report page. We go back to that watershed. And also on the overview page, if you, there's a feature up here, if you don't want to see text, you can turn it off and just get straight to the water body information. You can also turn on any water monitoring locations that other organizations or government has monitored in this watershed, and this, you can get that information in a pop-up. And if there were any permitted dischargers that have a permit to discharge into these waters, they would show up here. But there are not any in this particular watershed. Okay, so moving on through the community level, we have a swimming tab. So these are all the waters in the watershed that were assessed for something. So say you're just interested in going swimming, you click here and you can see the map changes color and it will show the waters that have been assessed for swimming. And so we have some good waters here that have been assessed for swimming. And then you can move down the menu here to eating fish, and you watch as the map changes as I click that button, and you can find out what waters were assessed for eating fish. We also have, we know that the state has more recent data than what is in this application. So for each state, we have their fish advisory, have linked to their fish advisories website under the eating fish tab. So if you want really up-to-date information, you can click there, go to Virginia's fish advisories page, and you can get more information there. Okay, the next tab is aquatic life. So these water bodies have been evaluated for aquatic life. You click on the definition, wondering what that is. And then moving on through, the next tab is drinking water. So up to this point, we've talked about Clean Water Act information coming from our assessment and TMDL database, but now we're going to switch to drinking water, and this is coming from our Safe Drinking Water Act. Some of this information, most of it. So if you get here, you'll get an outline of your county, and then you'll get to see what drinking water systems provide the drinking water in this county. And actually for Richmond on this tab, there are none in this county, but I have Maine up here. And so let me just quickly show you Maine. So in this county in Winthrop, Maine, there's a bunch of entities that provide drinking water, and we have them sorted by surface water or groundwater. And biggest one first, population served is 22,000. That's the biggest one in that area. And then you can filter by name if you know a certain name or drinking water source here. And when you click on these, you get more information about through this drinking water database we have on that water system. So you can also click more details, and that will launch you off into that database, and you can go and dive even deeper into the details. But here we want to keep it user friendly, so we're just skimming the surface, so you can do a deeper dive if you want to. Okay, the next tab, turn off the text. The next tab is who withdraws water for drinking here. And let me go back to Richmond because that's where I was before. Okay, so now this tab is going to show who is withdrawing water from this watershed for potential source of drinking water. And so on the drinking water tab, we don't have any location information, but we just have the outline of the watershed or the county. So in this area in Richmond, you can see that there's one public water system that withdraws water for drinking here. And so you'll get the same kind of information from our Safe Drinking Water database, population served, if there's been a health-based violation, what kind of water is it, surface water. And then there's one last tab on the drinking water page, which says which waters have been assessed for drinking water use. And this is back to the Clean Water Act information. Some states have assessed surface water for a potential future source of drinking water. So let me go back to Maine because it actually did that. So you can see in Winthrop, Maine here, in this watershed, 4 water bodies have been assessed for drinking water use and 4 have been assessed good. So they've been, you shouldn't actually go in and drink this water, but this could be a potential source of drinking water after treatment, after they treat it, you could potentially drink it. So that's what that tab means. You shouldn't actually drink it now. But so the state has identified that as a potential future source of drinking water. Okay, let me go back. Oh, something did something weird there. Okay, so the next tab on the community level is monitoring. And so I showed you some monitoring stations on the overview page, but this is a deeper dive with the monitoring data. So states, federal agencies, tribes, and local agencies, also volunteers and universities monitor this water and submit the data to EPA and then, or the USGS through the water quality portal. And then now we're showing the data here in How's My Waterway. And so here, if you want to do a deeper dive on the monitoring locations, you can filter up at the top. Say you're just interested in the stations that have data on nutrients or pesticides, you can turn that on and you see 4. There's 4 stations there that have pesticides data, or you can do metals, or you can just pick a few of them, or you can turn them all on and see all the monitoring stations. So this page is unique because this is the only place in the application we can actually download the data directly. So you can click on any of these stations here, or you can click them on the map. You get the same stuff. And you can see how many samples were taken, how many measurements were taken, and you can download. You can click an Excel or CSV file and just get the data right there, and it will download it to your computer in spreadsheet form. We also, as Dwayne mentioned, meant to show this before, but I just want to show you while I'm doing the live demo. Our application is mobile friendly. You can go anywhere in this app, and this is an iPhone. And you can get any information you can see on the big screen on the little screen as well. So you can just hop on your phone while you're out and say, can I swim here? Or I'm interested in fishing. You can turn the map on or off. And you can still click on the map and get the pop-ups. And you can do that for any page in the app. Okay, so all this information, monitoring information, drinking water, impairments. So now that it's all been monitored and assessed, well, what are the issues? You might want to know, well, what are the biggest issues in my watershed? I just want to see that because I want to know what's going on. So we have this identified issues page, and it says 75% of the assessed waters in this watershed are impaired. Instead of clicking through each water body separately, you can see, okay, here are all the impairment categories in this watershed. Wow. Okay, so they're all turned on right now, but you can turn them off and say you just want to see where the PCBs are, or you just want to see where the excess algae is, just right there, or the mercury. And I think you can turn on a few at a time. You can turn them off, or you can turn them on like that. So on this page, we also have, if there's a discharger that has a significant effluent violation through our enforcement and compliance database, it will show up here. And in this watershed, there is not, but I know there is one in Greenbelt, Maryland. So I have opened that for you all to see. So we have lots of impairments here, and we have a discharger with a significant violation. And you can see it's the USDA, interesting. And it's also on the map here in orange. And you can get more information. What's the permit status? Is there a significant violation? Yes, in the last 3 years. Has there been an inspection? Is there formal enforcement action? And then this will, you can go up to the facility report in our enforcement and compliance database, and you can find out more information, like what exactly were they doing there. And I believe in this location, there are more dischargers than Richmond. So there's 2 here. Some watersheds have a lot more, like 50. Some watersheds have hundreds of monitoring locations. So each watershed is different, and each state is different. So we might have more recent data in another state like Colorado or DC. Actually, they have 2020 data, and more states are submitting 2020 data this year. So that's great as well for this app. So when they submit that and it's approved, it will show up in this app. So say Virginia submits more recent data tomorrow and we approve it, it will show up in How's My Waterway immediately. Okay, so now you know the issues, you know the water's been monitored, you know what's going on. So maybe you want to get involved and you want to know what's being done to restore this water body. Is anyone doing anything? So we have a restore page. And so we have projects here and plans. We have Clean Water Act Section 319 projects, which is the EPA's non-point source pollution control program. So EPA awards grants for implementation of a non-point source pollution management program. So what's being done to clean up that non-point source pollution here? There's 8 different projects. We don't have location information on this page, but you can click on these projects and you can see it's from our grants tracking database what the impairments are, what money has gone towards this project to clean it up. If it's on schedule, it's pretty recent, 2019. And if you open the project summary, like in other cases, this will go directly to that database and you can do a deeper dive. And if there's any documents, they'll show up here as well. The next restoration tab we have here is restoration plans. And a lot of these are TMDLs, but it could be watershed plans or other, could even be a meeting, a public meeting. I found out recently. So there's 10 restoration plans in this watershed. And you can click on it and you can see it is a TMDL. The status is final action. It actually was completed in 2010. And we actually have a separate TMDL page in How's My Waterway, much like the water body report page, where you can get a separate page for every single restoration plan we have in here. So you just want to send off this restoration plan to your friend instead of them having to go into How's My Waterway and find it, like I just did clicking through. You can actually send a direct link like you can do with the water body report. This is taking a little while to come up. But while we're waiting, I could click on some other ones. You can see we go pretty far back here with our data. But there's a bunch there you can click through. Okay, well, we'll see if that comes up eventually. Maybe I clicked on the wrong one. Let's try another one, just in case. Okay, well, while we're waiting for that plan page, I can move on. So How's My Waterway is an ongoing piece of work here at EPA. So we plan on adding new functionality to this application every few months. So we have other plans to add more plans and possibly more water bodies here to this page. You can see where the plans are, and some in the future, some state revolving fund water infrastructure loans here, which would be very exciting for us. Okay, so now that you've seen what's being done to restore the water, so you might want to get involved and say, well, I'd like to protect this watershed. I care about it. So you get to the protect page, and you can see we have a bunch of tips from several EPA websites on how you can protect your water in your community, schoolyard, or home. And if there are any protection projects, they would show up here, but there aren't any in this watershed. And like I said, How's My Waterways continues to evolve. So we do have plans to enhance this page in the near future. We like to put state watershed health scores here, state watershed and healthy watershed indexes throughout the state. And also we want to show protected areas here that have been protected in the US. So those are some plans for this tab. I'm gonna check that. Gonna check that plans page. Okay, so the TMDL I tried to open finally opened. So this is the individual plan page. So say you want to send your friend this. Your friend is interested in this TMDL. So you send it to them, and they say, "Oh, I can read all the documents that have to do with what they're doing here to clean up the water, what's been addressed, what are the waters covered." And just more information there. Okay, so I think I have gone over everything in the community level. So we'll pause there and see if Dwayne, have you gotten any questions you'd like to ask, you'd like to highlight here before I move on to the state pages?
Yeah, maybe just one for the sake of time.
Sure.
Is this linked with satellite data app on HABs? Thought you might be interested to answer that one.
Oh, wow. That's such a great idea. And so we want to do that. We have data at EPA that we can use. So we're actually looking into that. It's called Cyan, the EPA app that has that information. And so we're looking into using their services to pull in How's My Waterway for the future. Good question.
And I think for the sake of time, I'll let you just move on to the next section.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, so that was a community level. You enter the location in the search box, and you get to see the data by small watersheds. Could be your backyard or just an area you're interested in. So now, what if this data is all rolled up so you can see what's happening across your whole state? So that's where the state tab comes in. I see things are spinning because I bet a lot of people are on there right now. So when you get to this tab, you can choose a state. Wait for it to come up. Uh-oh. Okay, let's try. Let's try going there again. State, come on. Okay, well, while we wait for the state tab to load, I've talked a lot about the data that you can find. We also actually have a data page. So if you're in the app and you're looking at something and you're curious or you want to know more about the database it came from, there's a data page up at the top here. And this lists all the databases we're pulling from and where you can find it in How's My Waterway, like attains the assessment and TMDL database that Dwayne had mentioned before. You can find out where this information on the community page and the following tabs, and the state and advanced search tabs on the state page. And then we have the enforcement database, the grants one, safe drinking water, and then waters where we show watershed boundaries, and then the water quality portal. So you can find out more about the data you're actually seeing if you're interested. Uh-oh. We have a problem. State information is temporarily unavailable. Okay, well, we can try again in a second. We also have an about page on the app, and I've tried to explain a lot of what you're looking at, but maybe you need to know more. So we have a whole about How's My Waterway, what's the glossary doing, the data, what you're looking at, what are impairment categories, what's on the state and national pages here. And then we have a question and answers, and these are frequent questions we've gotten and try to provide quick answers to those questions. Okay, so while I think we're still waiting, I think we have a database that's not cooperating.
Kiki, this is Brad. It might have just come back up if you hit a refresh.
Oh, okay, great. Okay, so sometimes that happens. A lot of people are hitting it at once, which might be happening during this demo. Okay, so now I'm on the state tab, and I'm gonna pick New Jersey. I love going here and showing people the state. I'm not from there, I just like the data that it's showing. Okay, so when you get here, you enter your state, you get some metrics that the state has wanted to highlight that you like to know, that there's 19-some thousand rivers and stream miles and some other metrics. There's also a paragraph about the state's water program. So New Jersey has submitted that to us as well, so you can learn more. And also there's a link here right at the bottom if you would like to go directly to New Jersey's water program website if you need to contact them for some reason, and each state will have that as well. Uh-oh, so still spinning. Well, I could move to the national page while we wait to see if this shows up. So I think I will do that. It looks like it's not cooperating for us right now. So I'm going to move to the national page and then try to come back to the state at the end. Okay, so you've seen what's happening in your community. Hopefully you'll be able to see what happens in your state. The database comes back up. So now we have a national page, and this gives you an overview of water quality on a national scale. This is coming from our National Aquatic Resource Surveys. And so you can see here that we have excess nutrients are an issue. That's one of the biggest issues we're facing, and some more information about that. And then you can learn about the health of our waters, about rivers and streams, lakes, coasts, and wetlands. And we'll give you some more information about that. Hopefully inspire you to take action. And then we link directly to those pages that actually you can download some data directly from these separate pages that we show here as well, but you have to go outside the app to do that. Also on our national tab, we have national drinking water information. So you can explore national drinking water information here. And this gives you an overview of our drinking water program here at EPA, the basics, what you need to know. How do you know how can you find out if your water is safe? How to request a consumer confidence report. And then we have some metrics here nationwide. We also have this on the state page by state. So what kinds of public water system there are. Community is the most common, I believe. And a pie chart showing how many of these different water systems are in the US. Also, if you want to know how the US is doing overall with drinking water, this is a service that gets updated every quarter, and it will show you how many violations are throughout the country, the population served in violation, total systems, total population served, over 300 million, 93% of systems in compliance. So that's good. And population served in compliance, which 93% again. So so that's a overview of the National Drinking Water Program. And well, let's go back to state and see what's going on there. Still spinning. So do we have any other questions we'd like to answer while we see if this will come back up?
Yes, hold on. We answered that one. Is there a way to check whether a specific data set is included in How's My Waterway? So could you talk about how they find out where the data come from?
Oh yeah, so the data page should give you an overview of, this is actually where we're pulling all the data from, but I don't have exactly the details of the data sets here, just the databases we're pulling from. So that is what we have on the app. You can also contact us. We have a contact us form if you want to know more. You can also click on this form and email us, or just fill out the form. It'll go directly to me to give more information on the data. And since I'm showing the data page, I talked about how, well, this might not be working either. I was going to show how we rename certain impairments for the public friendly terms we use, but that doesn't seem to be working either. Sorry. Oh man, I'm having a rough time this summer.
Yeah, Kiki, I believe one of the, so just to kind of let folks know, one of the core systems with 700 plus users hitting it all at the same time, I think it's crashed. So we will have a backup shortly, and we are making some changes so that this doesn't happen again. But yeah, I think the system has crashed right now. Too many people hitting it at the same time.
Okay. Let's see. So is there anything?
One other question one question that's come up quite a bit, Kiki, could you talk about, how mobile app versus responsive app? Can you talk a little bit about how this is mobile app? And because a lot of folks are asking, they can't find this in the App Store. Could you just talk about that quickly?
Oh, yes, that's a good question. So it's actually not an app that you can download. So this is a responsibly designed web app. So you can access it at mywaterway.epa.gov, and it works on all different screen sizes. So you can go to that URL on your mobile phone or your tablet or your computer, and you can get the same kind of user experience depending on what screen size you're using. And so it's not actually an app you download, it's a web app. So it works, but you have to go to the URL. So you can't have it locally as a separate app on your phone. And it's easier to maintain this way, just to have it like this instead of having to always update an app that's in the App Store.
Kiki, if you want to go ahead and move on, we can just introduce one more poll question and then go on to a longer Q&A session.
That sounds good.
Okay, so before we move into our Q&A session, we do have one last poll for everyone. And as a reminder, you may need to exit full screen mode of the webinar to respond to the question. If that doesn't work, you can feel free to submit your answer in the questions chat box. So we just want to know if you would use this tool in your day-to-day activities. Okay, let's see the results. Awesome, it looks like a lot of you would. So I also would like to let everyone know that the certificate is now available to download from the handouts panel. We will now answer a few questions from the audience. If your question does not get answered or you would like to contact our speakers, you can reach out to them directly. And remember that you can enter your questions in the questions chat box. So Dwayne, if you want to go ahead and take it away, we have about 5 or 6 minutes.
Great. So we have a lot of questions, and I apologize for all the people that I'm not going to be able to get to. I've been trying to navigate through all these questions and respond to as many of you as I could. If we don't get back to you, certainly reach out to us afterwards. But let's go ahead and hit some of these. So Kiki, there were some questions about how can they get this data into some of their own applications. For example, especially the map information they're interested in. Are those maps available outside of How's My Waterway?
That's a great question. So yeah, all our data is public. So we would have to provide you with the information you need to access them through web services that we're pulling in all the data through web services. We have that information, but you would have to contact us. We don't have that in a guide yet. We do plan to write some sort of guide for people that want to use the data so they can actually do that easily without having to contact us. So yes. Oh, and in the future, we do want to give you the functionality of this app so you could actually take what you're seeing and import it into ArcGIS and add your own data to a different app, a different instance of the map, but that's in the future. Good question.
Okay. Excellent. There's another question about what's the lag time in getting data from states and then up into How's My Waterway? The example is looking at a creek from the state of Washington, but see that the data is fairly old. You want to talk a little bit about that, or if you want, I can talk about that.
You can take that one.
Okay. Yeah. So the water quality assessment information that we have in the system, it comes from the state integrated reports that they submit to EPA every 2 years. For a lot of states, that's 2020 data. For a number of other states, it's 2018 data is the most recent. For others, like Washington, it's actually a bit older. So as soon as the data gets submitted to EPA, there's about a 2-week to sometimes a month lag for us to process and manage the data. But then within 2 weeks to a month, that data will show up in How's My Waterway once we have it. Let me see if I can find you another question. We already answered the mobile app questions. There's a question about geographic coordinates. Could they be used to get a location? Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I believe, I don't think you mean lat long. I don't think you can enter lat long. You can, correct me if I'm wrong, Brad.
Yes, sorry. I'm not sure if I hit the send to the respond to that question, but you can. So right in that search box, you can use longitudes and lats right there.
Oh, that's great.
There's also a question about, is there information on lakes as well as just streams?
Yes, if a lake has been evaluated or assessed, it would show up if the state has assessed it. And on the national page and on the state page, it's not, we can't show that right now, but yeah, we have that lake. We definitely have lakes in there.
Okay, excellent. Let's see if I can get you another one. Let me just scroll through lots of questions. Let's see. Okay, so there's a question about the NARS data. So the national info is from the NARS data. Is it just a roll-up of state data, or is it only the NARS data?
I believe it's there's the state statistical survey data that has been rolled up nationally. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, actually, I should have taken that one. I'm sorry, Kiki.
Oh, okay.
So it actually is just the NARS data. So we don't roll up the state data for the national page, mostly because every state has different assessment methodologies. And so rolling that data together, we found that to be fairly problematic. So we use the national survey data to be able to provide that information. Let's see if I can get you one more before we drop off. There's a question about regional type of stories. So we've got state, national, and community. So questions about kind of more regional stories. You want to talk a little bit about that?
That's a great question. We are looking into that. So we do want to have some sort of page here in the future that would give regional stories for bigger watersheds, like our areas like the Chesapeake Bay or San Juan watershed out west. So we do want to have some sort of regional tab that would give you that information, story maps, stuff like that in the future, maybe next year.
Okay, excellent. And then maybe last question, we're going to get cut off here. How do they get data added, especially on the monitoring page? How do they get data so that their data shows up?
Oh, that's a good question. So at EPA, we have a system called the Water Quality Exchange, where that's where all the data is submitted that shows up on the monitoring tab. So if you go through the process of uploading your data there and getting it approved, it will show up on the monitoring tab. And if you want to email more to ask more about that, you can use the contact us form, and I can give you more information.
Okay, thanks, Dwayne and Kiki. I think that's all the time we have for questions. Thanks everyone for participating in today's webcast. As a reminder, the certificate for this webcast is available in the handouts panel on the side of your screen. Next slide. Today's presentation was recorded and should be posted within the next month. You can find a full list of our previous webcasts on EPA's Watershed Academy website. We are currently planning our next webcast and hope that you will visit our website in the coming weeks as we post additional details on the topic speakers and how to register. You can check back with us at epa.gov/Watershed Academy for more details. And one final quick reminder, please fill out the evaluation that will appear on your screen after the webinar. At this time, I'd like to conclude today's webcast. Thank you to Dwayne and Kiki for the amazing demonstration. That ends our webcast for today. Thanks again for joining us.